The man in my living room looked down at his clipboard and smiled. "Mr. Mercer? Good. I had one question for the seller." I thought I had misheard him. "The what?" "The seller." He turned one of the pages toward me. "Your daughter said you'd be out during the appraisal, but since you're here, I need to confirm when you plan to vacate." Behind him, my family photographs were gone from the mantel. My wife's blue chair had been moved out of the room. The bookcase looked half empty. Even the rug had disappeared. The house looked ready for someone else. I had left it 90 minutes earlier because my daughter, Leah, asked me to give an insurance inspector some space. I came back only because I had forgotten my reading glasses. Now a stranger was standing in the home I had owned for 31 years, asking when I would leave it for good. "Who told you I was selling?" I asked. The man's smile faded. He looked toward the stairs. My son-in-law, Scott, appeared at the top of them. He stopped when he saw me. Then Leah stepped out behind him, holding the framed wedding photograph that had been on my bedroom dresser that morning. Nobody spoke. The appraiser lowered his clipboard. "I think," he said carefully, "someone needs to explain this before I continue. My name is Frank Mercer. I was 64 that morning, and until that moment, I believed the most serious disagreement in my house was how long my daughter and her family intended to stay. Leah, Scott, and my 9-year-old grandson, Owen, had moved in 6 months earlier. It was supposed to be for 10 weeks. Their landlord sold the townhome they were renting, and the new house Scott planned to build had been delayed by permits and rising costs. I had 4 bedrooms, a garage, and more silence than I needed. I told them to come home. For the first few months, I was glad they did. Owen ate cereal across from me every morning. Leah filled the refrigerator with food that did not come in a frozen tray. Scott repaired a gate I had been meaning to fix for 2 years. I did not charge them rent. They paid for groceries and utilities. I told myself that was enough because family was not a business arrangement. My wife, Ellen, would have said I was enjoying the company too much to admit I needed it. We had bought the house when Leah was 4. Ellen chose the brick because it looked warm in the rain. I built the shelves in the den, badly at first, then properly after she made me redo them. There were pencil marks inside the pantry door showing Leah's height from kindergarten through high school. Ellen passed away 5 years before that morning. I had not turned the house into a shrine. At least I did not think I had. I gave away her medical equipment. I donated most of her clothes. I painted the bedroom. But I kept her blue chair by the window because that was where she read. I kept 3 of her cookbooks in the kitchen even though I used only 1. And I kept the house because it was mine. It was paid for, and I was not finished living there. Leah disagreed with the last part more than she said. 8 months earlier, I had fallen from the 2nd step of a ladder while cleaning the gutter. I bruised my hip and cut my forearm. Nothing was broken, but Leah found me sitting on the back patio before I could stand. She was a physical therapist. She spent every workday seeing what one careless fall could do to a person's independence. After that, she noticed every stair, loose mat, and dark corner in the house. I agreed to install another handrail. I promised not to climb a ladder alone. I even let her put a small motion light in the upstairs hallway. I thought we had solved the problem. Standing in my emptied living room, I realized Leah had decided the problem was the house itself. The appraiser introduced himself as Nathan Price. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "I was engaged to prepare a valuation for a proposed sale. I was given written confirmation that you had agreed." "You were given a lie." Leah put my wedding photograph on the hall table. "Dad, please don't do this in front of him." You brought him into my house. Scott came down the stairs. Frank, nobody is selling anything today. This is just information. Nathan glanced at him. That is not how the assignment was presented to me. That was the first useful thing anyone said. I held out my hand for the clipboard. Nathan hesitated, then gave it to me. The top page showed my address, my tax parcel number, and an estimated sale date 5 weeks away. Under occupancy, someone had typed, "Seller relocating voluntarily to Maple Grove Cottages before closing." I had never heard of Maple Grove Cottages. Behind that page were photographs of every room in my house. They had not been taken that morning. The trees outside the windows were bright with sunlight. A newspaper on the kitchen counter showed the date. 3 weeks earlier, I had spent that Saturday fishing with my brother. While I was gone, my daughter and son-in-law had removed my photographs, moved Ellen's chair, and photographed the rooms as if I no longer lived in them. "Where are my things?" I asked. Leah looked toward the garage. I walked past all 3 of them and opened the inside door. My photographs were stacked in 2 plastic bins. Ellen's chair stood behind Scott's truck, wrapped in a moving blanket. Cardboard boxes lined the wall. One was marked Keep, one was marked Storage, the third was marked Donate. Inside the third box, beneath 2 old lamps, were Ellen's cookbooks. Leah followed me into the garage. Those labels were temporary. Which part? The box or the decision? I wasn't going to give anything away without asking you. You were just going to decide what I should ask to keep. Scott stayed in the doorway. We needed clean photographs to get an accurate number. You needed my permission. And then what? He asked. You would have refused before you saw the options. That answer told me more than an apology would have. They had not hidden the appraisal because they feared I would misunderstand. They hid it because they understood exactly what my answer would be. I returned the clipboard to Nathan. The appraisal is over. He nodded. Understood. Before you leave, I want a copy of everything you received concerning my property. Scott stepped forward. That material belongs to the client. Nathan looked at him. You identified Mr. Mercer as the client and seller. Scott's mouth closed. Nathan gave me his card and promised to send what he could after speaking with his office. Then he packed his measuring device and left. The front door had barely shut when Leah began. Dad, I know this looks terrible. It looks organized. We were going to talk to you tonight. After the value came back. Scott answered. Yes, because a real number makes it a real conversation. A real conversation includes the owner. He rubbed both hands over his face. Your house is too large. The stairs are getting harder. The yard takes 2 days every week. Maple Grove has single-level cottages, maintenance, a clubhouse, and medical offices 5 minutes away. It also has a moving date. Leah took a folded brochure from the kitchen drawer. Maple Grove Cottages looked like every retirement advertisement ever printed. Silver-haired couples holding coffee, flowers that never needed watering, and not a single cardboard box in sight. A yellow sticker marked Cottage 18. Reserved, deposit received. You reserved it? I asked. Leah nodded. The deposit is refundable. That was not my question. Yes, we reserved it. When? Last week. They had selected another home for me, paid a deposit, photographed mine, and scheduled an appraisal, but they kept calling it an option. How much do you think this house is worth? I asked. Scott named a range between $700,000 and $750,000. And the cottage? $312,000. Where does the rest go? Leah answered quickly. Into a safe account for you. It would cover everything for the rest of your life. Scott looked at her, not me. The glance lasted less than a second. It was enough. Show me that account. We haven't chosen it yet, Scott said. Then show me the plan. Frank, we were collecting information. You collected a moving date. Leah's voice rose. Because if we waited until you were ready, nothing would change. You still have Mom's shoes in the upstairs closet. That stopped me. She was right. One pair of Ellen's gardening shoes remained on the floor beneath my winter coats. I had forgotten they were there until the week before. Then I saw them and closed the door. Leah's eyes filled, but she did not look away. I come here and see you surrounded by things you can't let go of. I see you carrying laundry down those stairs. I see the gutter you promised not to touch. I'm afraid the next call will be from a hospital, and you act as if that fear belongs only to me. Her fear was real. So was what she had done with it. You are allowed to worry, I said. You are not allowed to turn that worry into my consent. Scott pushed the brochure toward me. Tour the cottage tomorrow. That is all we're asking. No. What you asked was for me to leave before the appraiser arrived. I picked up the brochure and the property packet. You will put every item back where you found it. Tonight, we will discuss how soon the three of you are moving out. Leah stared at me. You're throwing Owen out because we tried to help you? Do not put him between us. He lives here too. Because I opened the door. Not because you inherited the key. I went upstairs and closed my bedroom door. On the dresser, a pale rectangle showed where my wedding photograph had protected the wood from sunlight. For the first time since Ellen died, the empty space did not feel like grief. It felt like a preview. Nathan emailed me that afternoon. He attached the engagement request, the room photographs, and the message he had been shown as proof that I approved. The message contained my name, my phone number, and one sentence from me. You two handle it. I trust you. I recognized the words. 2 weeks earlier, Leah had texted while I was at the grocery store. The insurance company wants photos of the repaired gate and the new handrail. Can Scott handle it while you're out Tuesday? I replied, You two handle it. I trust you. The screenshot Nathan received showed only my reply. The question above it had been cropped away. Below the image, Leah had written, Dad gets overwhelmed by paperwork since Mom passed. He asked us to coordinate the sale details and present him with the final numbers. I read that line 3 times. Leah had not only claimed I agreed, she had explained my absence by making me sound incapable. At 5, I printed the email and placed it beside her plate at the kitchen table. Scott read it first. Then Leah sat down. Owen was spending the night with a friend. I was grateful for that. Did you crop the message? I asked. Leah looked at the paper. Yes. Scott turned toward her. You told me you had a clear approval. You told me it was only for the appraisal. That's not what I asked. And this is not your chance to become the honest one, she said. The speed of her answer told me they had been having different versions of this argument in private. I tapped the line about paperwork. Do you believe this? Leah's anger weakened. No. Then why write it? Because Nathan's office wanted to speak with you directly. Scott said if they did, you would shut everything down before we could show you the cottage. So you made my judgment the reason I could not use it. She covered her mouth with one hand. Scott began talking about intent. People often do that when the facts have stopped helping them. He said they were not trying to steal the house. My name was on the deed. No sale could happen without my signature. The deposit at Maple Grove was refundable. The appraisal would have given me valuable information even if I said no. Every sentence was technically true. Together, they described a plan designed to make my signature feel like the only remaining step. "Where is the financial plan?" I asked again. "There isn't one yet," he said. Leah looked at him. "What about the worksheet?" Scott became still. She noticed. So did I. "What worksheet?" I asked. Leah stood and went to the small desk they used in the guest room. She returned with a thin folder. Inside was a page titled Mercer Downsizing Options. The estimated sale price appeared at the top. Below it were the cottage, closing costs, moving expenses, and a reserve fund of $150,000 in my name. The remaining amount, $240,000, was listed as family real estate investment, secured note, 7% return. "This is what I meant," Leah said. "You would earn more than a savings account, and the money would help build the development Scott has been working on." I looked at him. "You plan to borrow $240,000 from me." "Not borrow," Scott said. "Invest. The note would be secured by property." "Which property?" "The Northline project. The one that does not exist yet. The land is under contract." Leah leaned forward. "Dad, you told me last year you wanted to help us get stable. This creates 6 townhomes. Scott builds them, you receive interest, and we finally have enough to buy one ourselves." Now I understood why my concern about the house had become an urgent family project. Their future had been placed beneath mine on the same worksheet. "Who wrote this?" I asked. "Scott and his business partner," Leah said. "And who reviewed it for me?" Neither answered. "A secured note requires documents. Show them to me." Scott closed the folder. "We were not at that stage. You were at the stage of choosing my moving date." He stood. "I am not going to sit here and be treated like I planned some kind of theft. I saw a way to solve 3 problems at once. You get a safe home and income. We get a home. My company gets a project that keeps 8 people working. And all it costs is a house that none of you own. It costs you nothing. You would still have over $300,000 in equity and another $150,000 in cash." That was the first time he described my money as the portion left for me. Leah heard it too. "Scott," she said, "Dad would have the cottage plus the full note. That's what you told me." "That's what the worksheet says. It says $150,000 in his account. Where is the rest of his sale money?" Scott pointed to the investment line. "There." "Then why did you say the full note?" He did not answer. The appraisal had not even been completed, and the numbers were already changing depending on who asked. I took the folder upstairs with me. The next morning, I called Maple Grove. The sales coordinator was cheerful until I gave her my name. "Mr. Mercer, your daughter said you would tour cottage 18 tomorrow. Cancel the reservation." "I'm sorry to hear that. The deposit is refundable to the cardholder." "Whose card?" "Leah Hale's." At least they had not used mine. "What were you told about me?" I asked. The coordinator paused. "Only that the stairs in your current home were becoming unsafe, and your family was assisting with a planned transition." There was that word again. Transition. It sounded gentle enough to hide almost anything. My next call was to Paula Grant, the real estate agent named in Nathan's paperwork. I told her I owned the house, had authorized no sale, and wanted every draft connected to my address withdrawn. She apologized immediately. Mr. Hale represented that the family had agreed and that the appraisal was the final step before your signature. Did you ever see my signature? No. We had not listed the property. But you prepared it. A draft market package. Nothing was public. She emailed it to me. The draft described my house as vacant at closing and priced it low enough to attract a fast offer. The photographs showed bright rooms without Ellen's chair, my photographs, or the evidence of anyone's life. One note recommended painting over the pantry door because buyers might see the pencil marks as damage. I went into the pantry. Leah's name was still beside the line from August 1999. At 13, she had grown almost 2 inches that summer. Ellen drew a small star next to the mark. My daughter wanted to protect me from a house that held too much of the past. Her sales packet called that same past damage. Paula's email included another attachment by mistake. It was a chain between Scott and a man named Victor Lane, his business partner. Victor had asked whether the Mercer proceeds were certain enough to remove the financing contingency on the North Line land contract. Scott replied, "Yes. Family approval is in place. Appraisal Thursday. We can commit the $240,000 and close by the 28th. The date on the email was 6 days earlier. Below it, Victor wrote, "Then I'll release our bank line and use Frank's funds as the equity contribution. If he delays, you cover the $35,000 deposit personally." Scott had not merely imagined borrowing my money. He had promised it. And if I refused, he owed $35,000 he did not appear to have. I forwarded the chain to Leah with one question. "Did you know?" She called within a minute. "No." Her voice was barely audible. "Did you know he had removed the financing contingency?" "I didn't even know what that meant until I looked it up." "Did you know about the deposit?" "He said it was $5,000 and refundable." "Maple Grove is refundable. North Line is $35,000, and apparently it becomes his problem if I delay." "Dad, I swear I did not know." I believed her. That did not erase the cropped message, the photographs, or the sentence she wrote about my mind. Scott had lied to her about the money. She had lied for him about me. Both facts could be true. "Come home after work," I said. "Come alone." Leah sat across from me at the kitchen table that evening. Without Scott beside her, she looked less certain and more tired. She admitted the plan had started after my fall. Scott said the house would eventually become too much for me, and waiting for a crisis would leave everyone with worse choices. He found Maple Grove. Leah toured it first. She liked the wide doors, the small garden, and the emergency call buttons. Then Scott connected the possible sale to North Line. He told her I would retain every dollar, some in the cottage, some in savings, and some in a secured note that would pay me monthly. "I knew the development helped us," she said. "I told myself that didn't make it wrong if it helped you too." "When did helping me require the cropped message?" She looked at the table. "When you would not discuss moving. You asked if I wanted a smaller place someday. I said maybe when I chose one. Every time I brought it up, you changed the subject. That is not consent." "I know." It was the first apology in 2 days that did not contain the word "but." Then she told me something I had not understood about the day I fell. When she found me on the patio, I had not heard her car arrive. For almost a minute, she thought I was unconscious. She saw Ellen during the last year of her illness, when one small accident often became a week in the hospital. She said that for 8 months, every time I failed to answer the phone, she pictured me on the concrete. "I am angry at you for scaring me," she said. And I am angrier at myself because this plan let me pretend I could control it. That was the most honest explanation she had given me. You cannot make me safe enough to guarantee you will never be afraid, I said. She nodded. And you cannot make me independent by taking decisions away from me. She nodded again. I slid a sheet of paper across the table. It was not a sales agreement. It was a move-out schedule. They had 30 days. Leah read it once. Where are we supposed to go? You both earn salaries. You have been living here without rent for 6 months. You will find a rental. Owen starts school in 3 weeks. Then choose one in his district. That will cost almost $3,000 a month. So now you understand the value of the home you treated as available capital. She folded the paper. Are you cutting me out of your life? No. I am removing your control over my address. I also told her I was changing my durable financial power of attorney. After Ellen died, I had named Leah because she was my only child, and I trusted her. My brother would take that role for now. A professional fiduciary would serve as backup. Leah's face changed when she heard it. Being asked to move hurt her. Losing the authority I had once freely given her hurt more. Dad, I would never take your money. You tried to schedule what happened to it. That is not the same. It is close enough that I need distance between you and the paperwork. She left the table without arguing again. Scott came home an hour later. He placed the move-out paper on the counter. 30 days is not reasonable. It is legal, documented, and longer than the time you gave me before my supposed closing. Yeah, we were trying to create a future for this family. You were trying to make my house solve a promise you had already made. His face tightened. Paula had no right to forward that email. That is your concern? Victor misunderstood me. Then show me the $5,000 refundable deposit you told Leah about. He looked toward the stairs. She was standing halfway down them. Tell him, she said. Scott pulled out a chair but did not sit. The truth came in pieces. Northline was not simply his next project. His renovation company had lost money on 2 jobs when a subcontractor failed and material prices rose. Scott had borrowed against his truck and used most of their savings to keep paying his employees. The 6-townhome development was supposed to rescue the company. Victor would provide the bank relationship. Scott would provide construction management. They still needed equity. My house became the equity. If we lose Northline, I may have to close, he said. Then why didn't you tell your wife? Because she had already spent a year worrying about money. I was trying to fix it before it became her problem. Leah laughed once without humor. So you protected me by making my father the seller. Scott turned to me. Frank, I handled it badly. I admit that. But the project is real. The return is real. Give me 60 days. Let an attorney write the note. You can keep the house if you want. Take a line of credit against it instead. He had finally reached the point where the retirement cottage disappeared from the plan. My safety had been the argument. My equity had always been the goal. No, I said. You haven't seen the projections. No. 8 people could lose their jobs. Then show them the house you plan to risk. He looked around the kitchen. For the first time, the building seemed to him like something other than a number. What do you want me to do? He asked. Tell Victor the truth. Cover your own promise with your own property. Reduce the company if you have to. And move your family out of my house before you decide it can save you again. For the next week, the 3 of us lived like careful strangers. Scott left early and came home late, Leah searched rental listings. Owen knew there was an argument, but not why. I told him only that adults had made plans without listening to one another, and that none of it was his fault. On Saturday, he found the boxes in the garage. He carried one of Ellen's cookbooks into the kitchen. Mom said Grandma wrote notes in this one. She did. He opened to a page stained with tomato sauce. Ellen had written less salt beside a recipe and then ignored her own advice every time she made it. "Is this going to the new house?" he asked. "It is staying in this one." He nodded as if that settled something important. Then he pointed to the pantry door. Dad said the painter was going to fix those scratches. They were not scratches. They were the lines that measured his mother's childhood. Scott had already asked a painter for an estimate. That afternoon, I put every photograph back on the mantel myself. I unwrapped Ellen's chair and returned it to the window. Leah watched from the doorway. "I should be doing that," she said. "Yes." I did not hand her the frame. Scott's response came on the 9th day. He did not ask me for the money again. Instead, he called my sister, 2 cousins, and one of Ellen's oldest friends. He told them I was refusing a safe move because grief had made me stubborn. He said Leah was exhausted from worrying and that the family needed to help me see reason. By Sunday afternoon, 3 people had called. My sister, Joan, was the only one who asked what had happened before offering advice. I sent her the cropped message, the appraisal packet, and Scott's email promising my proceeds. She called Leah. I did not hear their conversation, but Leah came into the den afterward carrying her phone. "I told everyone the truth," she said. "Everyone Scott called?" "Yes, including Aunt Joan. Especially Aunt Joan." She sat in Ellen's blue chair, then realized where she was and stood again. "I said the house is yours. You are not confused, and I used a message you did not send for that purpose." "Why now?" "Because Scott made the same choice with them that I made with Nathan. He described you in a way that made it easier to ignore your answer." That did not repair what she had done, but it was the first cost she accepted without asking me to pay it. The Northline contract expired 12 days later. Scott and Victor lost the land. Scott owed the $35,000 deposit personally. He sold his new truck and replaced it with a used one. He reduced his company from 8 employees to 5, after helping 3 find work with another contractor. He did not lose everything. He lost the version of the business that depended on my money arriving before I knew I had offered it. Leah and Scott rented a smaller townhome 4 miles away. On move-out day, Scott carried the last box to the garage and placed his house key on my workbench. "I am sorry," he said. It was the first time he used those words without explaining his plan afterward. "I was afraid of failing," he continued. "Then I built a solution in which you had no right to say no." I picked up the key. "You were failing before Northline." He looked at me. "Your company was losing money. That is a business failure. You could have survived it." I closed my hand around the key. "What you did in this house was a failure of trust. Do not confuse the two." He nodded. I did not tell him we were fine. We were not. After they moved, the house became quiet again. For one evening, I wondered whether I had protected my independence so completely that I had chosen loneliness. Then I looked at the extra handrail Leah had installed and admitted something I had resisted because it arrived inside the wrong plan. The house did need changes. The stairs were not impossible, but the laundry room was in the basement. The upstairs shower had a high edge. The back step became slick in winter. Being right about ownership did not make me right about everything else. I hired an aging-in-place specialist, one I selected myself. We converted the small office on the first floor into a bedroom, added a shower to the downstairs bathroom, improved the outside lighting, and moved the laundry into a closet near the kitchen. I paid for the work from my savings. I did not hire Scott. He understood why. 3 months passed before Leah came inside again. She still visited, but we met on the porch or at her townhome. Owen stayed with me every other Saturday. Leah no longer used her key because she no longer had one. When I finally invited her in, she stopped at the new downstairs bedroom. "You changed it," she said. "I changed what needed changing." She ran her hand along the new doorway. "It's safer." "Yes. You could have let us help." "You were not helping. You were replacing my decision with yours." She accepted that without defending herself. Then she handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for the appraiser's fee and the photographer's invoice. "I paid both," she said, "but the money came from our account, and I want you to see exactly what we spent arranging your life." There was also a copy of a form removing my address from every draft, mailing list, and project file Scott had created. "The power of attorney stays with Uncle Ray," she said. It was not a question. "For now." Her eyes filled, but she nodded. Forgiveness is sometimes mistaken for the removal of consequences. I could love my daughter, believe her apology, and still refuse to return the same authority to her. Those things did not cancel one another. 6 months after the appraisal, Nathan Price called me. He said his office had received a new request connected to my address and wanted to verify it directly before accepting. For a moment, my hand tightened around the phone. Then he explained. My insurance company needed an updated replacement cost inspection because of the renovation. This time, it really was insurance. I scheduled the appointment myself. Nathan arrived the following Tuesday. Leah was there too, but only because I had invited her for lunch. He walked through the downstairs bedroom, the new bathroom, and the laundry closet. At the pantry, he noticed the pencil marks. "I remember these from the photographs," he said. The draft recommended painting over them. Leah stood beside me. "They're not damage," she said. Nathan nodded. "No, I suppose they're not." When he finished, he returned to the living room and opened his clipboard. My photographs were back on the mantel. Ellen's chair stood in the sunlight. The house looked occupied because it was. "One final question for the owner," he said. "Not the seller. The owner." I answered it. Scott's company survived, smaller than before. He spent the next year taking renovation jobs he could finance without promises from relatives. He repaid the lost deposit from the sale of his truck and a monthly deduction from his own pay. I never invested in Northline or whatever project came after it. Leah stopped sending me brochures for retirement communities. Instead, she began asking one question before offering advice. "Do you want help, or do you want me to listen?" Sometimes I chose help. Most times I chose listening. We did not return to the relationship we had before the appraisal. That relationship had included a key, a legal document, and a kind of trust neither of us had understood because it had never been tested. What we built afterward was narrower. It was also more honest. On Owen's 10th birthday, he asked whether we could measure him against the pantry door. Leah held the ruler. I made the pencil line. Owen wrote the date himself. His mark landed 2 inches below the one beside his mother's name at the same age. Leah touched Ellen's small star with one finger. "I almost let them paint this," she said. "You did." She looked at me. I handed her the pencil. But you didn't get to decide what happened next. She drew a small star beside Owen's mark. That was as close to forgiveness as we had come. It was enough for that day. My daughter asked me to leave before the appraiser arrived, because she believed the sight of a safer future would make the loss of my choice easier to accept. My son-in-law called my house trapped equity because he needed my past to rescue his future. They had photographs, a cottage, a moving date, and a plan for every dollar. The only thing they did not have was my answer. When the appraiser called me the seller, I did not make a scene. I did not destroy a marriage, close a company, or turn my grandson against his parents. I canceled what I had never approved. I took back the key. I moved the authority out of their hands, and I let the promises they made with my house become bills they had to pay themselves. That was my revenge, not losing the people I loved, making them understand that loving me did not make them my owners.